Ever wonder what the strangest sound in the universe might be? Or what happens when a human biologist and an alien reproductive specialist exchange data? Let me tell you about the fateful night Orion Wade thought he accidentally killed his alien hookup. Turns out she was just ovulating. The cheap liquor burned Orion Wade's throat as he downed his third shot of Centaurian whiskey. The spaceport bar on Delva Prime, with its hazy blue lighting and mix of interspecies patrons, had become his temporary sanctuary after completing what might have been the most dangerous biological extraction contract of his career. To not dying in the acid swamps of Rigel 4, he muttered to himself, signaling the bartender for another round. The bartender, a four-armed Trexian with skin that resembled polished obsidian, slid another glass toward him with practiced precision. It started with a drink and ended with a slurp Orion would never forget. As an exobiologist who moonlighted as a specimen hauler between research gigs, Orion had spent the last 3 weeks knee-deep in toxic mud, extracting rare bacterial colonies that pharmaceutical companies were paying top credit for. The mission had nearly cost him his left leg when a predatory vine had wrapped around his calf. Only quick thinking and a plasma cutter had saved him from becoming permanent fertilizer. Now, with his payment securely transferred and his next contract not for another 2 weeks, Orion was allowing himself the luxury of getting properly drunk. He was halfway to achieving this goal when he felt a presence beside him. Turning, he found himself staring into eyes that reminded him of liquid mercury, bright silver, and utterly inhuman. "Your consumption pattern suggests celebration," said a melodic voice. "The elevated heart rate and flushed skin indicate successful reproductive signaling. Fascinating." The voice belonged to a Lithari female, tall and slender, with skin that seemed to shimmer with crystalline veins just beneath the surface. In the bar's dim lighting, her skin emitted a subtle blue-green glow that pulsed gently with each word she spoke. "I'm not signaling anything," Orion said, taking another sip. "Just celebrating not becoming swamp food." "That is worthy of celebration," she agreed, sliding onto the stool beside him. "I'm Karine Neva, xenoreproductive specialist." Orion nearly choked on his drink. "You're a what now?" "I study cross-species mating behaviors," she said matter-of-factly. "I'm here conducting research on human sexual practices. Your species is famously adaptable." The crystalline veins beneath her skin pulsed a warm amber color as she spoke, and Orion found himself mesmerized by the pattern. Her directness caught him off guard. Most beings took time to get to such topics, but she had dived right in. It was refreshing, if unexpected. "Dr. Orion Wade," he replied, extending his hand, "exobiologist. I usually study bacteria, not mating rituals, but I suppose we're in similar fields." She stared at his extended hand for a moment before tentatively reaching out. When their skin touched, her veins flashed a brilliant pink. Momentarily, Orion found himself intrigued by the biological display. "Your body temperature has risen by 0.3 degrees, she noted, withdrawing her hand. "Is that a conscious response?" Orion laughed, the whiskey making him bolder than usual. "Not conscious, no. Just a normal human reaction to meeting an attractive woman. You find my form pleasing." Her head tilted slightly, the crystalline pattern shifting to a deeper rose color. "That's valuable data. Most humans I've observed show hesitation toward non-humanoid features. I've been off-world too long to be picky about things like different biology," Orion said with a shrug. "Besides, your bioluminescence is quite beautiful." The compliment seemed to please her. The patterns beneath her skin brightened noticeably, and a smile curved her lips, which Orion noticed were a shade of purple that no human could naturally achieve. "Would you like to participate in my research?" Karine asked her, silver eyes studying him intently. "I've gathered observational data, but first-hand experience would be invaluable." Orion's glass stopped halfway to his lips. "Are you proposing what I think you're proposing? A controlled exchange of reproductive data?" she clarified, as though discussing the weather. No obligation for repeat trials, though. That option remains available pending initial results." The scientist in Orion appreciated her clinical approach, while the man in him was simply attracted to her otherworldly beauty. The alcohol in his bloodstream made the decision easy. "Why not?" he said, finishing his drink with a flourish. What's the worst that could happen? If only he had known what those words would unleash, he might have ordered another drink first, or possibly an entire bottle. As they left the bar together, Kareen's skin pulsed with anticipation, her veins shifting from amber to a deep, vibrant magenta that illuminated their path through the dimly lit corridors of Delva Prime's spaceport district. Orion found himself entranced by the display, wondering what other biological surprises awaited him. The door to her temporary quarters slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a space that was sparse but deliberately arranged, clearly the habitat of a researcher rather than a permanent resident. Scientific instruments and data pads were neatly stacked on a desk, and the walls displayed holographic charts of various humanoid anatomies. "Make yourself comfortable," Kareen said, her voice carrying a new timbre that sent an unexpected shiver down Orion's spine. He had no idea that this encounter would change everything, not just for him, but potentially for two species that had barely begun to understand each other. Orion had been with different species before it came with the territory when you spent more time off-world than on, but nothing had prepared him for Kareen. As her quarters dimmed to accommodate their advancing intimacy, her skin began a light show that would put the nebulas of the Horsehead sector to shame. "That's incredible," he whispered as his fingers traced the crystalline patterns along her shoulder. Where he touched the veins beneath her skin pulsed a vibrant electric blue, tracking his movements like lightning chasing across a storm-filled sky. "It's a natural response," Kareen explained, her voice slightly breathier than before. "My epidermis contains thousands of photosensitive nodules that respond to emotional and physical stimulation. Leave it to an alien scientist to make foreplay sound like a biology lecture." But Orion found it oddly arousing. As a fellow scientist, there was something deeply intimate about understanding the mechanisms behind desire. As their bodies intertwined, Orion discovered that Kareen's biology held more surprises than just bioluminescence. Her skin temperature fluctuated with each caress, cooling when he moved away, warming where his skin made contact. It created a sensation unlike anything he'd experienced with humans or other aliens. "Your thermal regulation is extraordinary," he murmured against the curve of her neck. "Your verbal communication during intimacy is charmingly scientific," she replied, her silver eyes dilating as her body arching toward him. When they finally merged, the light beneath her skin intensified, casting the entire room in a pulsing violet glow. Orion lost himself in the rhythm of their encounter, his scientific mind momentarily surrendering to pure sensation. That's when it happened. The sounds weren't just strange. They were mechanical, rhythmic, invasive. At first, Orion thought it was coming from somewhere outside the room. Perhaps a maintenance drone in the walls, or an alarm in a neighboring unit. But as their intensity increased, he realized with growing horror that the sounds were coming from Kareen herself. High-pitched whistles erupted from somewhere deep within her body, escalating in both volume and pitch. And then came the slurping, a powerful pulsing suction that seemed to emanate from places where their bodies connected. Kareen's eyes, where he nods, rolled back the veins beneath her skin, now pulsing an intense crimson red. The whistling reached a crescendo that made Orion's ears ring. Are you okay?" he gasped, trying to pull away. The suction only intensified, holding him in place. Kareen didn't respond. Her body had gone rigid, the whistling now accompanied by a rapid clicking that reminded Orion of ancient Morse code transmissions. "Oh God, she's dying," Orion thought, panic flooding his system. His alcohol-clouded brain jumped to the worst conclusion. Somehow their incompatible biologies had triggered a fatal reaction. With a surge of adrenaline-fueled strength, he managed to break free from the unexpected suction, nearly falling off the bed in the process. Kareen's eyes snapped open, looking puzzled but not pained. "Where are you going?" she asked, her voice perfectly normal despite the continued whistling from her body. There's something wrong," Orion stammered, already fumbling for his clothes. He managed to get his boxer shorts on backward and gave up on the rest. "Nothing is wrong," Kareen said. Sitting up, the whistling had begun to subside, but the slurping sounds continued. "This is normal reproductive synchronization." "Normal," Orion repeated, backing toward the door. "There's nothing normal about whatever that is." The door slid open automatically as he stumbled backward into the hallway. His heel caught on the seam of the flooring, sending him sprawling onto his back with a thud that knocked the wind from his lungs. As he lay there gasping like a fish out of water, a hovering janitorial drone rounded the corner. Its sensor array swiveled toward the half-naked human sprawled on the floor, the cleaning attachments whirring to life in apparent confusion. "Biological spillage detected," the drone announced in a chipper voice. Please remain still while cleaning protocols initiate. No cleaning protocols, Orion yelped. Scrambling to his feet, he began a shameful sprint down the corridor, the drone pursuing him for several meters before giving up. By the time he reached the public transport hub, his communicator was pinging with an incoming message. Kyrene's ID flashed on the screen. Are you all right? That was expected. The reproductive synchronization indicates high compatibility. Would you like to return to complete the data exchange? Orion stared at the message in disbelief. He'd fled her quarters as if escaping a biohazard containment breach, and she was calmly inviting him back as if nothing unusual had happened. His heart still pounding, Orion realized he needed advice, and quickly, this was beyond his expertise. Despite his impressive credentials in xenobiology, he needed someone who understood both the scientific and the cultural implications of what had just occurred. With trembling fingers, he pulled up a contact he hadn't used in over a year. Sela Varn, once his colleague, then briefly his lover, now an intelligence officer specializing in interspecies affairs. If anyone could explain what had just happened and what it might mean, it would be Sela. Computer priority call to Sela Varn. He said, his voice still shaky. Warning recipient is flagged as restricted contact. His communicator replied coolly. Override authentication code, Wade Alpha 69. It's an emergency. The communicator chimed, indicating the call was connecting. As Orion waited, still standing in the middle of the transport hub, in nothing but his backward boxer shorts and one sock, he couldn't help but wonder what other biological surprises might be lurking among the stars, and whether any of them involved sounds that would haunt his dreams for weeks to come. Sela Varn's face appeared on Orion's communicator screen, her expression shifting instantly from irritation to amusement. Her dark hair was cropped shorter than when he'd last seen her, and the insignia on her uniform indicated a recent promotion. Wade, are you in your underwear? Her eyes narrowed. And why are they on backward? Sela, I need help, Orion panted, ducking into a public restroom for privacy. I think I might have killed someone, or at least severely injured them. Her amusement vanished. Start from the beginning and make it quick. I'm in the middle of a security briefing. Orion gave her the condensed version, trying to keep his voice down as he described the whistling, the suction, and his panicked escape. When he finished, Sela's face had transformed again, this time into the expression he'd seen whenever he'd missed something painfully obvious in the lab. Let me get this straight, she said slowly. You hooked up with the Lethari female, and when her reproductive system activated, you ran away. Her what? How do you know what species she is? I didn't even tell you, Sela sighed. The crystalline skin that changes color. Classic Lethari traits. They're new to the Galactic Union. Signed the treaties about 8 months ago. My department's been handling the integration protocols. Okay, fine. But what was happening to her? It sounded like she was being torn apart from the inside. A smile tugged at the corner of Sela's mouth. You didn't break her, Wade. You might have fertilized her. Orion felt the blood drain from his face. What? Lethari reproduction involves biological synchronization. What you experienced were her reproductive organs adjusting to your genetic material. The sounds are part of their natural process. Think of it as their version of, well, you know. But it was mechanical, like valves and pumps, and because it is mechanical, at least partly, Lethari evolved in a radiation-heavy environment. Their reproductive system developed specialized chambers that filter and recombine genetic material to prevent radiation damage. When they find a compatible mate, those systems activate at full capacity. Orion slumped against the restroom wall, and the suction ensures optimal genetic transfer. The stronger the suction, the more compatible the pairing. Sela leaned closer to her screen. Just how strong was it? Strong enough that I nearly lost my... Orion cut himself off. Strong enough. Sela's eyes widened. You need to get yourself scanned immediately. If the compatibility was high enough, there's a chance conception already occurred. That's impossible, Orion protested. Cross-species reproduction without genetic engineering is... Normally, yes, but the Lethari are different. Their system adapts to compatible genetic structures regardless of origin. It's why they've survived as a species despite their harsh homeworld. There have already been 2 documented cases of successful human Lethari conception since first contact. Orion felt a wave of nausea that had nothing to do with the Centaurian whiskey. What happens now? Get to a med center, ask for a biological synchronization scan, and maybe, she added with a smirk, put your underwear on correctly first. As the call ended, Orion stood frozen in the restroom, his mind reeling. This was supposed to be a simple hookup, a celebration of survival. Now he might have created a new life form. 30 minutes later, Orion sat on an examination table in the spaceport's medical bay, watching as a spherical medbot hovered around him. Its scanners humming, analysis complete. The bot announced trace biosynchronization markers detected in subject's reproductive material. Signature indicates Lethari interaction within past 2 hours. Is that bad? Orion asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Insufficient data. Recommend follow-up scan in 24 hours to determine if genetic exchange was successful. The medbot's optical sensors adjusted focus. Would you like information on interspecies, parental rights, and responsibilities? No, I mean not yet. Orion rubbed his temples. Just give me something for this headache. As the medbot administered a painkiller, Orion's communicator pinged again, an incoming call from Kareen. For a moment, he considered ignoring it, but scientific curiosity and a growing sense of responsibility won out. Hello, here, he answered cautiously. Kareen's face appeared, her silver eyes reflecting the light of her surroundings. What looked like a medical facility similar to the one Orion was in. I've confirmed conception, she said without preamble. The procedure was successful. Initial scans indicate viable hybrid cellular division. Orion nearly dropped the communicator. You're pregnant with our offspring, yes. Preliminary genetic analysis shows 58% Lethari, 42% human DNA structure. The hybridization appears stable. Her skin pulsed with a warm golden light that Orion hadn't seen before. Lethari gestation typically completes within 60 standard days. I've already adjusted my research schedule accordingly. 60 days, Orion's voice cracked. But human gestation is over 270 days. How is that even possible? Accelerated cellular replication combined with our specialized reproductive chambers. The whistling you heard was partly the sound of genetic analysis and reconstruction. Our bodies perform instantaneous gene editing to ensure viability. She paused, her head tilting slightly. Your abrupt departure was unexpected. Most species consider the synchronization phase to be pleasurable. Did you find it distressing? The clinical way she discussed what had just upended both their lives made Orion want to scream. Instead, he took a deep breath. I think we need to talk in person, not over communicator. 20 minutes later, Kareen opened the door to her quarters. She had changed into a flowing garment that seemed to complement the now steady amber glow of her skin. The room had been tidied, all traces of their earlier encounter erased. You've returned, she noted, gesturing him inside. Your heart rate is elevated again, but your pheromone signature suggests anxiety rather than arousal. I'm not here for that, Orion said quickly. I want to understand what's happening, what this means. Kareen sat on a small couch, her posture perfect. You're concerned about parental obligations? I should clarify that Lethari culture does not require paternal involvement if it's unwanted. My research grant includes provisions for offspring care. It's not about money or obligations, Orion said, pacing. It's about the fact that yesterday I was just a freelance exobiologist with a drinking habit, and today I might be a father to an entirely new species. Kareen studied him, the crystalline patterns beneath her skin shifting to a curious blue-green. Your emotional response is fascinating. Post-reproductive stress is uncommon among Lethari males. They generally experience what humans might call pride or satisfaction following successful conception. This isn't post-reproductive stress, Orion snapped. This is normal human panic, when life-changing events happen without warning. I see. Kareen's voice softened, and for the first time, Orion detected something beyond scientific detachment in her tone. Among my people, conception is celebrated as the ultimate scientific achievement, two distinct genetic codes merging to create something entirely new. I apologize if I approached it too clinically. Something in her expression made Orion pause his pacing. Behind her analytical exterior, there was genuine emotion, perhaps not presented in a human way, but undeniably present. No, I'm sorry for running out like that, he said, sitting beside her on the couch. It was just unexpected. Perhaps we should reintroduce ourselves. Kareen suggested, the veins beneath her skin pulsing gently. Not as researcher and subject, but as two beings who have created something unprecedented. Orion nodded slowly. I'd like that. My full name is Karine Neva, daughter of the elder scientist Toran Neva. I'm the first Lethari xeno-reproductive specialist to study human biology directly. And you are Dr. Orion Wade, former Earth University researcher, current freelance exobiologist and specimen hauler, apparently soon to be father to the third known human Lethari hybrid in existence. Karine's skin brightened at his words, and a small smile formed on her purple lips. The genetic compatibility between us is unusually high. The suction intensity indicates a 93% synchronization rate. That's quite rare even among Lethari pairs. What does that mean for the baby? The word felt strange in Orion's mouth. It means greater stability in the hybrid genome, reduced chance of developmental complications, and possibly enhanced traits from both species. She hesitated, then added, it also means we were exceptionally well-matched, biologically speaking. And as she spoke, Orion found himself noticing details he'd missed in their earlier encounter, the subtle fluctuations in her voice that conveyed emotion, the way her eyes shifted color slightly with her mood, the graceful economy of her movements. How are you feeling? He asked, surprising himself with the genuine concern in his voice. Physically, I mean. The initial cellular division causes mild discomfort, but nothing significant. By tomorrow, the embryonic chamber will be fully formed. She placed a hand over her midsection. Already I can sense changes in my biological systems. It's remarkable. The wonder in her voice struck Orion. This wasn't just a clinical research subject or a random alien he'd hooked up with. This was Karine, a brilliant scientist, a woman from the stars, and now the mother of his child. I want to be involved, he heard himself say, not just as a research subject or a donor, if you'll let me. Karine's skin pulsed with a new color, a deep, rich violet that seemed to emanate from her core. I would find that acceptable, perhaps even preferable. As they sat together discussing the impossible future that had sprouted from a chance meeting, Orion began to understand that sometimes the most profound discoveries happen not in laboratories or alien swamps, but in the unexpected connections between two beings who never should have met. And sometimes those connections begin with a whistle and a slurp that one might never forget. If you've made it this far, you're clearly part of the galactic anomaly crowd. Hit subscribe. We're just getting started. The next 3 weeks transformed Orion's understanding of what accelerated pregnancy truly meant. Each day brought new changes to Karine's body that would have taken months in a human pregnancy. By day 5, her normally crystalline skin had developed intricate spiral patterns that pulsed with hypnotic rhythms. The medical scanner in her quarters, which Orion had learned to operate, showed the embryo already developing distinctive organs. The hybrid nature is causing unexpected adaptations, Karine explained, examining the holographic display of her internal systems. Her voice remained clinical, but the constant amber glow beneath her skin betrayed her excitement. The embryonic chamber is incorporating elements of human placental structure. Orion had rearranged his work schedule, canceling 2 lucrative contracts to remain on Delva Prime. He found himself oddly captivated by the rapidly developing life form they'd created. Half scientist observing a breakthrough, half terrified father-to-be. Your body temperature has risen again, he noted on the 10th day, helping Karine onto the specially modified couch in her quarters. The furniture now contained heating elements that maintain precise thermal conditions. The embryo requires higher temperatures than standard Lethari development, she confirmed, adjusting the settings. And something else. She hesitated, the first sign of embarrassment Orion had observed in her. What is it? Sound stimulation, specifically that sound you made when we first coupled. The vibration pattern that appears vital to proper neural development. Orion felt his face flush. You mean you need me to? Not the physical act, she clarified quickly. Just the vocal resonance. Your particular frequency range seems to stimulate optimal cellular division. And so began the strangest ritual of Orion's life, sitting beside Karine for an hour each day, humming and occasionally singing in specific patterns, while her scanner monitored the embryo's response. He felt ridiculous at first, but the readouts showing positive developmental leaps after each session made him continue. They settled into an unexpected domestic routine. Orion would return from the market with specialized nutrients that Karine's body now craved, while she documented every minute change in her condition with scientific precision. Their conversations evolved from awkward exchanges to genuine dialogue punctuated by moments of surprising intimacy. "Have you named many things before?" Karine asked on the 15th night as they sat watching the sunset through her viewport. "Bacteria colonies, mostly," Orion admitted. "HFYLegendsOfZang tradition gives naming rights to the mother, but I've been considering incorporating human customs as well." Her skin pulsed with a gentle, rosy hue that Orion had come to recognize as tenderness. "Would you like to suggest names?" Before he could answer, the door chime sounded, an unusual occurrence given Karine's limited circle of acquaintances on Delva Prime. The door slid open to reveal Sela Varn, her intelligence officer uniform, replaced by nondescript civilian clothes. Her expression grim. "We have a problem," she said without preamble, striding into the room. "The embassy wants the child. Sela says we're being tracked." "What are you talking about?" Orion demanded, instinctively moving closer to Karine. "What embassy?" "Both of them." Sela activated a small device that projected a privacy shield around the room, standard intelligence core equipment that blocked all surveillance. The Lethari High Conclave received Karine's research update yesterday. They've dispatched representatives to secure the specimen for detailed analysis under controlled conditions. Karine's skin paled to an ashen gray. "My father's influence. He sits on the conclave. He has always believed hybridization would dilute our genetic purity. And Earth's delegation isn't much better," Sela continued. "Half want to claim the child under the Emergent Biotechnology Treaty, which would classify it as a scientific breakthrough, owned jointly by the originating species." Orion's mind raced. "But you said there were already 2 human Lethari hybrids. Why the sudden interest in ours? The others died within days of birth. Yours is showing unprecedented developmental stability." Sela's eyes met Karine's. "Your father has been arguing that your research went beyond authorized parameters. He's petitioning to have you recalled and the pregnancy terminated for genetic safety." The crystal veins beneath Karine's skin darkened to a deep indigo, a color Orion hadn't seen before. Her hand moved protectively to her abdomen, which now showed a distinct curve. "They can't do that," Orion said firmly. "It's her body, her choice. Human rights laws don't necessarily extend to non-humans in contested jurisdictions," Sela finished. "And Lethari reproductive rights are complicated. Their tradition grants clans authority over genetic lines." "Why are you telling us this?" Karine asked, her silver eyes focused intently on Sela. "As an Earth intelligence officer, shouldn't you be facilitating your government's claim?" A flicker of something, guilt perhaps, crossed Sela's face. "Let's just say I owe Orion, and I've seen enough of politics to know neither government sees your child as anything but an asset to be controlled." She pulled out 3 small cards from her pocket. "Transport passes, lower levels of Delva Prime. I've arranged temporary shelter with a medical smuggler who owes me a favor. You have 2 hours before the Lethari delegation arrives at this residence. You're helping us escape." Orion couldn't hide his surprise. He and Sela hadn't parted on the best terms after their brief relationship imploded. "Consider it repayment for HFYLegendsOfZang," she said quietly. "I never should have left you there." The unspoken history hung between them. A failed mission, a life-threatening situation, an abandonment justified by protocol that had left Orion stranded in hostile territory for 3 months. "Pack only essentials," Sela continued, all business again. "I'll create false movement records to buy you time." And Orion, she fixed him with a hard stare. "Your account has been flagged. Don't access it from any official terminal." 2 hours later, Orion and Karine huddled in a grimy transport car, headed for Delva Prime's underlayers, the sprawling semi-legal districts beneath the city's official levels. Where jurisdiction became a murky concept, Karine's discomfort was evident despite her attempts to maintain composure. The crystalline patterns beneath her skin fluctuated erratically, and her breathing had become shallow. "Are you okay?" Orion asked, keeping his voice low, as the transport descended through maintenance tunnels, never meant for passenger traffic. "The embryo responds negatively to stress hormones," she explained, forcing her voice to remain steady. "I'm attempting to regulate my biological systems, but the interruption to my medical regimen is problematic." The transport shuddered to a halt at a dimly lit platform that bore no official markings. The few other passengers, individuals who clearly preferred to avoid official channels, dispersed quickly into the shadowy corridors. "This weapon," Orion said, consulting the directions Sela had provided. He supported Kareen as they navigated through narrow passages lined with improvised dwellings and unofficial businesses. The underlayers of Delva Prime functioned as a city within a city, a place where different species coexisted without the rigid structures of the Galactic Union. Above, air filtration systems hummed inefficiently, creating a perpetual mist that smelled faintly of recycled chemicals. "The contact should be at the end of this corridor," Orion said, checking the location again. A former medical researcher named Drav, who specializes in... Kareen suddenly stumbled, a soft cry escaping her lips. The glow beneath her skin flared to a brilliant white before dimming dramatically. "What's happening?" Orion asked, panic edging his voice as he helped her lean against a wall. "Accelerated development," she gasped. "The stress, it's triggered a protective response. The embryo is..." She winced, her hand pressing against her now prominent abdomen. "The pregnancy has accelerated to approximately 80% term, but it's only been 3 weeks. Hybrid vigor," she managed, attempting a weak smile. "The human genes are expressing unexpected adaptation protocols." A door slid open nearby, revealing a tall, spindly being with 4 arms and specialized optical implants extending from what might have been Invocus Uvarn's friends. The being asked, voice modulated through a translator. "I'm Drav. Get her inside before someone notices the light show." As Orion helped Kareen through the doorway, he caught a glimpse of sophisticated medical equipment that seemed jarringly out of place in the shabby surroundings. Whatever Drav's story was, they clearly had resources beyond the typical underlayer resident. Lithari-human hybrid, accelerated gestation, stress-induced developmental surge. Drav diagnosed without preamble, already scanning Kareen with a handheld device. "Interesting, most unusual combination." "Can you help her?" Orion asked, still supporting Kareen's weight. "Help? I can keep both alive. Yes, beyond that." Drav shrugged all 4 shoulders simultaneously. "Uncharted territory. Scanning shows something unprecedented. Embryo is generating synchronized bioluminescent and bioelectric patterns." Kareen's eyes widened. "That's impossible at this stage. Neural development shouldn't enable conscious control of bioluminescence until after birth." "Yet here we are," Drav replied, gesturing to the scan. "See, patterns are structured, not random. Almost like communication." Orion finished, staring at the rhythmic pulses displayed on the scanner. "It's trying to communicate with us." Kareen's skin suddenly flared with intense light, illuminating the room before dimming again. She clutched at Orion's arm, her silver eyes wide. "I felt it," she whispered. "In my mind. Not words, but impressions, emotions." She looked up at Orion, wonder mixing with fear on her face. "It knows we're running. It's afraid." Before Orion could respond, Drav's security system emitted a soft alert. The medical smuggler moved to a monitor, multi-jointed fingers dancing across the interface. "Problems," they announced. "Official search patterns detected in upper sectors. Systematic grid sweep moving downward. Both Earth security and Lithari enforcement. Estimated time to this sector, 3 hours." Orion felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. They had fled without a long-term plan, hoping only for temporary sanctuary. But with Kareen's condition deteriorating and their pursuers closing in, they needed more than just a hiding place. They needed a miracle. As Kareen's skin pulsed with another wave of light, responding to some silent communication from the life growing within her, Orion realized that perhaps they had already found one. A new form of life, neither human nor Lithari, but something entirely unprecedented. A child whose very existence challenged everything. Both species thought they knew about themselves. The next 6 hours unfolded in a blur of tension and preparation. Drav converted their living quarters into a makeshift medical bay and assembling sterile fields and calibrating monitoring equipment with practiced efficiency. The 4-armed medic moved with the precision of someone who had performed emergency procedures under less than ideal circumstances many times before. "Not first cross-species birth, I've attended," they explained, adjusting a nutrient infusion designed to stabilize Kareen's fluctuating biochemistry. "But first of this particular mix, fascinating challenge." Orion barely heard them. His attention remained fixed on Kareen, whose condition deteriorated with alarming speed. The natural Lithari gestation was accelerating beyond even their species' normal rapid timeline. The embryonic chamber is adapting to external threats, Kayrene explained between labored breaths. Her skin cycled through colors at an alarming rate, deep reds, electric blues, and occasional bursts of white that illuminated the entire room. It's an evolutionary response to ensure survival when the mother is in danger. A sharp beep from Drav's security system interrupted them. Proximity alert, the medic announced, checking the display. Search teams within 2 blocks. Multiple bioscanners detected. They're using Lithari spectrum analyzers will detect her skin emissions from half a kilometer. Can we shield her? Orion asked desperately. Not effectively, not while maintaining medical stability. The door hissed open unexpectedly, causing Orion to reach for a nearby surgical implement as a makeshift weapon. He relaxed marginally when Sela slipped inside her face tense. "They're coming," she reported, sliding her pistol from its concealed holster. "And I just got word her father is leading the Lithari contingent, personally." Kayrene's skin turned ash gray. "My father wouldn't normally leave the high conclave chambers for anything less than a planetary crisis." "Apparently you qualify," Sela replied grimly. "I've rigged false signals across 3 sectors, but it won't fool them for long." She glanced at Kayrene's monitored vitals. "How far along is she?" "She's crowning," Drav answered, focused on the medical scanner. "Hybrid birth differs from both parent species. Embryonic sac showing signs of imminent rupture, human-style contractions present but accelerated tenfold, 30 minutes maximum before delivery." Sela's expression tightened. "We don't have 30 minutes, 10 maybe less." A fresh wave of contractions washed over Kayrene, her skin flaring with such intensity that everyone in the room had to shield their eyes. When Orion could see again, he found her reaching for his hand. "Orion," she whispered, her voice strained but determined. "If capture is inevitable, you must take our child and run on Lithari ships in the main ventilation system. There are maintenance tubes large enough for a human. Earth vessels have similar passages above the crew quarters." "I'm not leaving you," Orion said firmly, squeezing her hand. Her skin felt hot to the touch, almost feverish. "The child is what matters now," Kayrene insisted. "It represents more than just our genetic material. It's proof of something both our species need to understand." Before Orion could ask what she meant, Drav's monitoring system emitted a series of urgent alerts. Multiple targets converging. The medic reported, breaching sequence initiated on upper access points. Estimate 5 minutes until. The lights flickered, then stabilized. 3 minutes. Drav corrected, all 4 hands moving in different directions simultaneously as they activated additional security measures. They've tapped into the power grid. Sela positioned herself near the door, her weapon ready. "I'll hold them as long as I can. Drav, get ready to deliver that baby Orion." "I know, Yin," he said, his jaw set. "I'm not leaving either of you." Kayrene's body suddenly arched in pain, a sound escaping her that reminded Orion disturbingly of the mechanical whistling that had started this whole journey. Her skin blazed with light so intense that the room's shadows vanished completely. Final phase initiated. Drav announced, medical instruments hovering over Kayrene's abdomen, embryonic sac preparing to. A deafening crack echoed through the small dwelling as the outer door imploded. Sela fired 2 precision shots through the newly created opening, forcing the intruders to pull back momentarily. "I need 5 more minutes," Drav shouted above the commotion, their specialized optical implants recalibrating to compensate for Kayrene's blinding illumination. "You've got 2, Sela replied, dropping to one knee to steady her aim. As she fired again, Kayrene's next contraction produced a keening sound that resonated through the metal walls. Drav's medical scanners began to malfunction, screens flickering with distorted readings. Unusual energy signature from fetus. They reported fighting to keep the delivery process stable, generating some form of bioelectric field. Never seen anything. The inner door blew inward, knocking Sela backward. She recovered quickly, rolling to a defensive position behind a storage unit. 6 figures rushed into the room, 4 wearing the distinctive armor of Lithari enforcement, and 2 in Earth security uniforms. Behind them stood a tall, imposing Lithari male, whose crystalline skin patterns mirrored Kayrene's, but glowed with a cold, steely blue. "Cease this abomination immediately," he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of unquestioned authority. "By order of the High Conclave, this pregnancy is terminated." "Father," Kayrene gasped, her skin dimming briefly in what Orion recognized as fear. Elder scientist Toran Niva, Orion said, positioning himself between Kareen and the newcomers. Your timing is terrible. Your grandchild is about to be born whether you like it or not. The elder Lethari's face remained impassive, but his skin flashed with patterns that Orion couldn't interpret. This is not a birth. It is a biological contamination event. Our species has maintained genetic purity for 10,000 years. I will not allow my daughter's misguided research to corrupt our bloodlines. Misguided. Orion felt a surge of protective anger. Her work could revolutionize interspecies medicine, save countless lives. At the cost of what makes us Lethari, Toran countered our uniqueness, our evolutionary advantages. He gestured to his security team. Prepare the stasis field for transport. We'll complete the extraction at the embassy under controlled conditions. You're not touching her, Orion growled, grabbing a surgical laser from Drav's array of tools. It was a pitiful weapon against their armaments, but he held it steady nonetheless. Your species' emotional irrationality is precisely why such unions are forbidden, Toran said coldly. Stand aside, Dr. Wade. This matter extends beyond your jurisdiction or concern. As security personnel advanced, Sela fired a warning shot that scorched the ceiling. Next one won't miss, she warned. Earth intelligence still has some say in this jurisdiction. The standoff intensified with Toran signaling his team to hold position temporarily. He looked past Orion to where Kareen lay. Daughter, you know the protocols. Your research authorization never extended to personal participation. The conclave will be lenient if you comply now. Kareen's response was drowned out by her own cry of pain as the most intense contraction yet seized her body. Her skin erupted in a supernova of light that temporarily blinded everyone in the room. When vision returned, seconds later, Drav was lifting something small and glistening from Kareen's body, a tiny form that pulsed with alternating patterns of light. Successfully delivered. The medic announced clinical demeanor briefly overtaken by genuine awe. Vital signs, stable. Both Lethari and human biological systems functioning in unprecedented harmony. The infant's first cry wasn't a human wail or a Lethari whistle, but something between a melodic sound that seemed to resonate with the crystalline patterns that covered its delicate skin. Those patterns flickered in a distinct, orderly sequence. Toran Niva stepped forward, his security team tensed and waiting for orders. He stared at the child with undisguised scientific curiosity that gradually transformed into something else, a reluctant fascination. The pattern, he whispered, it's not random. It's not Lethari communication either. Orion, who had moved to Kareen's side to hold her hand, looked closer at their child's pulsing skin. The pattern of light and dark, long and short bursts suddenly became familiar to him. It's Morse code, he said in disbelief. Human Morse code, it's spelling something. The infant's skin continued its rhythmic pulsing as Drav carefully placed the child in Kareen's arms. Everyone in the room, friend and foe alike, fell silent, watching the mesmerizing display. Future, Orion translated slowly, it's spelling future. Toran Niva approached cautiously, his own skin now pulsing with a complex pattern that reflected confusion, scientific interest, and something that might have been the first glimmer of acceptance. Impossible, he murmured. The neural capacity for communication shouldn't develop for months, and the ability to access human communication systems would require a perfect synthesis of both species' cognitive structures. Kareen finished, her voice weak but triumphant. What my research has always suggested was possible, not dilution, father, but enhancement. The infant's skin changed pattern again, cycling through colors before settling into a steady rhythm that combined Lethari bioluminescence with the structured patterns of human communication. The security teams lowered their weapons, slightly equally transfixed by the display. Toran Niva's scientific training warred visibly with his prejudice as he studied his grandchild. Finally, he extended a hesitant hand toward the infant. When his finger touched the child's skin, both lit up with a synchronized pulse of light that spread in concentric rings. A perfect genetic resonance, he whispered, between 3 generations. He looked at his daughter, then at Orion, his earlier coldness giving way to reluctant wonder. You fused our futures, he said, his voice carrying the weight of someone whose foundational beliefs had just been challenged. Not destroyed them as I feared, but joined them in ways I never considered possible. The confrontational energy in the room shifted, replaced by a collective awe that transcended species differences and political agendas. In the arms of its mother, illuminated by its own brilliant light, a child unlike any the galaxy had seen before, gazed up at the assembled representatives of two worlds and showed them a glimpse of what might come next. The negotiations lasted for 3 days. 3 days of tense diplomatic posturing, scientific debate, and the occasional threat of interstellar incident. Throughout it all, the child continued to grow at an accelerated rate, its skin patterns evolving hourly into increasingly complex communications that neither species fully understood. They named her Nova, a word that existed in both human scientific terminology and had a similar phonetic equivalent in Lethari language, roughly translating to new light. The name seemed appropriate for a being whose existence had illuminated possibilities neither civilization had fully considered. On the 4th day, representatives from Earth and the Lethari conclave reached an unprecedented agreement. Instead of claiming jurisdiction over the child, both governments would establish a joint observation program that would allow the family to remain together while providing regular medical data to both species' scientific communities. This arrangement is not what I envisioned, Toran Naiva admitted as he signed the final agreement. His skin pulsed with the subtle blue-green pattern that Orion had learned indicated thoughtful reconsideration. But Nova's development has already provided insights into genetic stability that could benefit both our species. She's your granddaughter, not just a research subject, Orion reminded him, cradling the infant, whose growth had already accelerated to the approximate equivalent of a 3-month-old human baby. Toran's expression softened marginally. Indeed, and perhaps that dual identity is precisely what makes her valuable to science and to family. Karine, still recovering but regaining strength daily, stood beside Orion. The three of them formed a tableau that would soon be transmitted across both civilizations' news networks, the first publicly acknowledged human Lethari family unit in galactic history. The Harmony Protocol is now in effect, announced the Earth diplomat, activating her official seal on the document. Citizenship rights extended to all 3 subjects with unrestricted travel permissions within approved sectors. The bureaucratic language couldn't diminish the revolutionary nature of what had just happened. In less than a month, an accidental encounter in a bar had led to a fundamental shift in interspecies relations. As the officials filed out of the temporary diplomatic chamber that had been established in Drov's now considerably upgraded medical facility, Sela approached the new family. She had maintained a professional silence during the negotiations, representing Earth intelligence with impeccable neutrality. "Your new credentials," she said, handing Orion a data chip. "And this?" She passed him a small metallic object, a key. "What's this for?" "Docking Bay 17. Consider it a gift from someone who's glad they were wrong about cross-species collaboration." A rare smile crossed her usually stern features. "It's called the Biolux, retrofitted research vessel with full medical facilities and enough range to chart the outer sectors, officially listed as a joint scientific expedition vessel." Orion stared at her in disbelief. "You're giving us a ship?" "Not me, joint commission from both governments. They're calling it a goodwill initiative, but really they're hoping you'll discover more breakthrough biological combinations out there." She hesitated, then added, "The navigation systems are open. No tracking or reporting requirements beyond the standard medical updates for Nova." Karine's skin brightened with understanding. "Freedom, they're giving us freedom to choose our own path." Sela nodded once. "The ship leaves in 3 hours. I've ensured your personal items were transferred from your previous quarters." She stepped back, offering a formal salute that transformed halfway into something more personal, a silent nod of respect toward Orion. Her debt repaid, her past forgiven. In her own way, she had helped birth something new as well. 2 hours later, as Orion and Karine prepared for departure, Drov visited them one last time, bringing a specially designed carrier for Nova that would maintain optimal temperature and sound conditions during space travel. "Remarkable infant," the medic said, adjusting the settings with their multiple hands, working in perfect coordination. "We'll monitor your transmissions with great interest, may publish paper. We'll credit you, of course." "We owe you our lives, Drov," Karine said, her skin pulsing with the warm amber of gratitude. The medic made a dismissive gesture with 2 of their hands, while the other 2 continued calibrating the carrier. "Good science is payment enough. This," they nodded toward Nova, "is better than good science, is new science, best meaning." As they made their way to Docking Bay 17, Orion was struck by how quickly life could transform. 25 days ago, he had been a solitary researcher celebrating a dangerous job completed with too much Centaurian whiskey. Now he was part of something unprecedented, a family that existed beyond the boundaries of what either species had thought possible. The Biolux lived up to its name. The sleek, mid-sized vessel featured laboratory facilities that would make any research institution envious, living quarters designed to accommodate both human and Lithari biological needs, and a cockpit with dual control systems. "They've thought of everything," Orion remarked as they settled into the pilot seats. The ship's engines hummed to life with a purr that spoke of recent upgrades and top-tier engineering. "Where should we go first?" Karine asked, her fingers dancing across the navigation controls with practiced ease. Her specialty might have been reproduction, but like most Lithari scientists, she had extensive training in multiple disciplines. Orion glanced at Nova, securely nestled in her carrier between them. Her skin rippled with patterns that seemed to reflect the ship's control lights. Learning, adapting, absorbing information at a rate that defied conventional developmental theories. Somewhere new, he decided, the Horsehead Nebula has several unexplored systems with potential biological diversity. We could start there. As the Biolux lifted off from Delva Prime's surface, leaving behind the spaceport where their journey had begun, Nova emitted a soft whistle, the same mechanical sound that had sent Orion fleeing in terror less than a month ago. The baby made the sound again. Orion didn't flinch this time. Instead, he smiled, reaching out to touch his daughter's luminescent skin as stars streaked past the viewports. "I think she approves," Karine said, her own skin pulsing in harmony with Nova's. The whistling sound continued, changing pitch and rhythm until it resembled something almost musical, a cosmic lullaby from a being who existed at the intersection of two evolutionary paths. As the Biolux accelerated into the vast unknown, carrying its unique family toward uncharted territories, Orion realized that the scariest sound he'd ever heard had become the most beautiful music imaginable. It was the sound of unexpected possibilities, of futures fused rather than divided. It was the whistle that had changed everything and might someday change the galaxy itself. And as the Biolux sailed through the starscape, that strange whistle, once terrifying, now beautiful, echoed through their new life together. Sometimes the most unexpected sounds lead us to the greatest adventures. If you enjoyed this cosmic tale of love biology and what happens when two species meet in ways no one anticipated, hit that subscribe button and join our expedition through the universe's strangest stories. New Galactic Chronicles every Friday. And remember to leave a comment about what alien biological feature you'd find most disturbing during an intimate encounter. Until next time, keep your scanners ready and your mind open. The universe is weirder than we can imagine.